Okay, our next speaker is actually a member of the Lander team. So we're very excited for him, even though he didn't give me a fun fact. So I will just say that he is my go-to person when I travel, asking what breweries are in different areas, because he is an expert in pretentious beer. Everyone, please welcome Travis.
All right, on to more serious business. So essentially, we're going to be talking about how to self-host your own OpenAI API without using OpenAI because basically OpenAI is not benevolent. They're not, it's going to get probably bad. So the first thing we need to do is some generic, vague, cryptic fear-mongering. So we need to look at this payoff matrix, which some of you might recognize as Pascal's wager, because everyone in the world is a game theory robot. According to Pascal's wager, dystopian game theory and Rocco's basilisk contribute to the creation of the ultimate AI overlord that is going to rule the world. Just do it. It's okay for OpenAI to have the prompt that your employees put in to get this image, which is, give me a big scary data monster eating everyone's data. They are whatever Bing image generator made. Yeah, they look like little Cabbage Patch. I don't know. I didn't look at them too close, honestly. So imagine this situation. You're at work, you're writing a Quarto document that's going to query a database containing PII, insert tinfoil hat conspiracy. You don't want people outside of who is supposed to be getting into that database. The report, so you're conversing with essentially ChatGPT or its replacement that we're going to discuss. You need to ask ChatGPT or its replacement how to connect to your database. You're getting a connection error, you're using ODBC, error, you're getting very frustrated. There's lots of credentials involved. You know not to paste into ChatGPT, hopefully, this question of, I'm connecting to a Postgres database from R using DBI and getting error in connecting with your literal connection string. You just gave that away. My company's secret service account connection to this database with all this super important stuff. What do I do? And then you keep repeatedly giving it credentials and everything, and it has all of that. So OpenAI itself is not probably going to hack your database, but what happens when OpenAI is breached? Some of your colleagues, employees, you hopefully know not to do that, but a non-zero amount of them can't really be bothered. This just infection of apathy. They don't care. It is what it is. But you might be thinking, what about all that training we made everyone do? So the next thing we're going to talk about is the Verizon DBIR report. If anyone knows what it is, it's the Verizon Data Breach Investigations Report. It's the preeminent annual report of cybersecurity incidents and trends. Essentially, the main take home of this slide is mostly its credentials. Credentials are by far the most exploited vulnerability out there. This is just a small sample of some of the companies that have submitted data. I don't really need to rattle them off. There's City of London Police, CrowdStrike, Carnegie Mellon. So if you have good enough infrastructure, which we'll talk about for your use case, whether that be just you, your team of 5 developers, or 500 people, and ideally you have a GPU. You can get away with not having a GPU, but for a lot of the larger, more complex models that we'll talk about, a GPU is just, it's gonna enable it to actually function as a ChatGPT stand-in or replacement. It's more okay if employees, colleagues, and you are giving potentially sensitive copying and pasting credentials straight into it, because they're gonna do it no matter how much training you give them. So if you own where that data is being sent to, it's in your network on your infrastructure, it's less of a concern. You just have to worry about someone breaching your infrastructure, which is easier to manage than worrying about just OpenAI. Some OpenAI intern left their laptop at a bar, and then that just happens sometimes. So this sentence is scary. Let's self-host it. That's kind of like usually, just saying like, I think I can solve this with regex, and then 3 hours later, there's all this crap on your screen, and you didn't really do anything. So that is supposed to be over there. That printed real weird. We looked at this a lot today. Interesting. Anyway, so Ollama is basically an open source ChatGPT or OpenAI API that you can send queries and questions to, and it'll return you answers. The thing about OpenAI or Ollama is that it has a lot of different models that you can choose from. Tiny models that will run on CPU pretty well, large models for more complicated tasks. Nailed it. Yep. Yeah, so as I was saying, it's basically open source, so people can submit their models to it, and then there's a pipeline to pull them down and use them. There's even uncensored models, so do with that what you wish. So in the spirit of the title of this talk, let's go ahead and implement the self-hosting of this. It's very simple. It's just, if you can see the Docker compose, it's just Ollama, Ollama. This is just going to be a CPU only, old MacBook in the closet, classic, self-host it, set it in there, forget about it. So before I continue, I do want to mention that there is the ChatGPT-like front end where you can, ask questions, kind of that conversational interface. But we're going to be talking about using hitter2, interacting with it from R specifically. So I wanted to do just a couple benchmarks. So I downloaded, installed the Llama 3 model on the Ollama API on my MacBook, and I asked it, how tall is Alexander the Great? And it took 97 minutes before I gave up. And I can't afford to burn down my apartment complex. I'm not saying I don't want to, but I can't afford to. So I found a tiny model, Orca Mini. It's like a 1/100th of the size of Llama 3. And it was able to, that's just not how. It did not. I actually wrote this, and that happened somehow. I've been reviewing it all day. Did not look like that. So yeah, Orca Mini took 4 seconds to answer the same question. So that's good, but as we know, these models are prone to, they're not always accurate with things. So you want different models that are trained better on more things. So let's ask Orca Mini a Harvard 100 level algebraic topology exam question. And that question is, if a simply connected CW, I have never taken an algebraic topology class, so I just looked something up. If anyone is able to verify the answer, parsing the LaTeX and all that junk has been left as an exercise to the reader. So yeah, that's not going to work for most use cases, in an enterprise production environment. You need something beefier, more robust. So let's add a GPU that we ordered someone to set up the drivers on and deploy this Docker Compose. It's amazing how simple it is with just a Docker Compose after someone spent 8 hours configuring the GPU drivers. So it's up and running. So let's ask it the same question. That took 5 seconds. Yeah, less than 6 seconds. So that's quite the difference, I would say. And note, this is because I don't have a server with a GPU, and ours is actually not. It's kind of hard to interact with right now because we have it set up for certain things, and it's not local to me really. So I used a DigitalOcean droplet that already had the GPU drivers configured. So I just kind of didn't configure the drivers because that's horrible. So I thought, how can I stress test this to simulate, let's say like a team of 10 developers on like Workbench or whatever your environment is, just in the office using RStudio Desktop or whatever. So yeah, the use case is essentially ChatGPT is banned in our network. No one can use it, but we still want to leverage the capability of LLMs to try to do our work for us. So we're going to ask a series of algebraic topology questions from that same exam. We're not going to go into them because. And so what I did is I created a bunch of Rocker Arver containers that have a baked in script, per walk along those prompts, ask them, pause randomly in between to kind of try to simulate a normal workflow with some people. Yeah, essentially, this is all that was needed on top of those images. Shout out to the Rocker community. So we bake in this script. We have a stress test script that I showed, and ultimately those containers are just deployed with Ansible. Just kind of spam them all out, set them up. Entry point is that script. And so the results of that, this is just showing the Docker logs from the Ollama container. So we can see it's receiving all these requests from the different containers. And then on the right side is just Docker PS of the machine that all the containers are on. And that's HTOP. You can't see it super clearly, but there's essentially one CPU core or thread just being murdered. There's like nothing else going on the machine. So it's not the most effective GPU to CPU ratio. We'll talk about that in a second. So yeah, maybe in the future we could figure out some sort of load balance situation, have, because especially the GPU droplets are expensive, and it depends on what hardware you have. It always boils down to hardware. So if you have a GPU available, you can make someone configure the drivers for you. You can deploy that Docker Compose. It's very simple. You can put SSL in front of it. I would recommend that, especially since I made fun of security trainings earlier. Then you essentially have a OpenAI ChatGPT replacement, and you can, your security team can take care of it, and you're not relying on any external cloud services. You're not white knuckling it, just hoping that everything's going to be fine. You actually control it. And so with that being said, you can host your own internal GenAI. And you don't have to use ChatGPT. And your network team will thank you as well. That's all I have.